Okay, check 1, 2. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Glad to have you here. So, in this today's video, I'm going to be doing an extremely in depth breakdown on exactly what it looks like, what it means, and how to heal, integrate the emotional body. This is going to be some extremely important, valuable information that you don't want to let go over your head because this is literally one of the main reasons why we're actually incarnate here on the planet. And if you're not doing this type of work, then you are guaranteed to live a life that is not going to be your highest potential and generally going to be a life that is not going to be truly satisfying to live. That's how important this information is. How to heal the emotional body. If this is something that you are a little bit drawn to, something you want to know more about, then I definitely recommend staying tuned for this very in depth video. Okay. I will see you on the other side. Okay. So, welcome in. So, we're here. So, as I said, this video is going to be super in depth. This is going to be in depth to the point where literally this is going to be course material here. Super, super valuable material. This is the same type of stuff that I'm working with people that I do mentorships with. I am watching people's lives transform right in front of me using this knowledge, using some of the practices that I'm going to be sharing, and just some of these different perspectives. This is stuff that before I was using it with my clients, I've been using on myself and has played a significant role in me coming into alignment with my authenticity, which means aligning with my purpose and doing what I'm here to do. Okay. So, just to give a little bit of a context of, the stuff that I'm going to be sharing in this today's video and how there are tons of people that are getting results with me right now using this information and are going to continue in myself as well. Okay. So, with that being said, let's go right into it. So, emotional body healing. What is the emotional body? The emotional body is an energy field that every single human being has. And in this specific energy field, we can almost think of it like layers. There's layers to our energy field. We have a physical body that has its own energy field. We have a mental body, which has its own energy field. Um, and then we have an emotional body, which has its own energy field. The emotional energy field is a really important one. It's a really, really deep, it's a really deep rooted energy that we have inside of our beings as human beings. And this is what expands into, I guess really the best way to put it is the emotional energy field expands out to the universe. This is like our cosmic radar. It's like a Bluetooth connection that we have with everything else. It's literally through our emotional energy body. It's like one of the most powerful energy bodies that we have. All of them are very important. All of them are very powerful and they work together, but the emotional energy body is so important. And um we're definitely living in a time where people are being trained and they are being indoctrinated to suppress this emotional energy body. And that is very intentional. There's a reason why this is taking place. Okay. One of the first things that just jumps to mind is um, the idea of feminism um, and how it was promoted, you know, a while back, and how it was generally taking the feminine energy. and masculinizing it. Okay, taking the woman and making her strong like the man, which is wonderful. It's wonderful if you are a woman and you want to or you need to be independent. That's very understandable. We need to do what we need to do in order to create safety in our life and in our psyches. But ultimately, the feminine energy is the key. It's the doorway into our emotional body, our emotional energy field. And that movement of feminism was a very intentional program to take away that feminine energy within the mass collective. And it plays its role. There's nothing evil, there's nothing wrong about it. It's just a part of this world that we live in, it's a part of the matrix. But it's important to be aware of these things if you actually want to understand what's really happening so that you can better process um, present moment circumstances. Okay? It's good to know what your terrain is. It's good to know what you're working with, and that's what we want to be aware of. Okay? So with that being said, that was just something that just came to mind on, one of these intentional programs that is designed to take away the feminine energy from the mass collective, therefore leaving many humans in a space where they cannot do their emotional processing because they don't think it's important and they suppress it within their psyche. So that is to start off with drawing a context on the emotional energy field that we all have and how all of us are growing up and living in an environment that is intentionally trying to suppress our own feminine energy to prevent us from having a deeper connection with the emotional energy body. That is how important the emotional energy body is. Now, because of this, all of us have experienced trauma. Every single human being is ordained to experience trauma throughout their life experience. Now, when you go through trauma is not a bad thing. Trauma is what literally teaches you about who you truly are. Trauma is what shows you the nature of your soul, meaning it shows you that you are truly connected to the source. It shows you how you can process. It shows you what you're here to do. It shows you how to be authentic. It shows you, once again, we're all connected together. It shows you these cosmic laws, these cosmic principles. So trauma is not a bad thing. Now, everything needs to have some form of moderation and everything needs to have some form of balance. Most of us are going through trauma and we don't have the awareness on how to actually process the trauma that we're going through. So, the way that this looks is we go through a trauma. Trauma is supposed to turn us into a better version of ourselves, a more authentic version of ourselves, but we don't know how to process the trauma. So instead, we repress the emotion of it, and that trauma with that repressed emotion lingers inside of our nervous system for years. And as that energy in our nervous system lingers for years, it starts to manifest into our conscious reality from the unconscious plane. So it literally starts to cause unfortunate circumstances. It starts to get us involved with things that are not fun to go through, things that end up harming us, things that keep us stuck in these repetitive cycles that we just feel like we can't break. Um, and a whole host of other problems manifest, all because we have a repressed emotion that is stuck in our nervous system. And we just don't understand how to process the emotion because we've been indoctrinated or we've been trained on a psychic level and a psychological level to avoid it, to not look at it. Okay. So, with that being said, now we have a pretty clear understanding that this is what's taking place. And this is literally what every single one of you listening to this video right now are going through. All right. Just take a minute to kind of reflect on that everything that I just spoke about is something that you are experiencing and something that you have experienced, whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it. This is important to accept. This is important to acknowledge and then become aware of. Now, as I said, the healthy process is someone goes through trauma. They understand there's an emotion behind the trauma. They process it by feeling it. They integrate it. That trauma turns into their potential. Human being moves on. They continuously go through certain types of traumas. They know how to work with it. They integrate it. They process it. They feel it, turn it into their potential. Trauma is meant to be used as a form of alchemy, a form of energetic transmutation, a form of taking a really dense negative energy, expressing it, experiencing it, feeling it, processing it, integrating it into a potential, into a positive, we could even say. This is what it's supposed to look like. But once again, when we take away that piece of education and we push in a lot of indoctrination to make people run away from feeling and processing and expressing, now that trauma builds up in the body. It builds up in the nervous system. That's where it causes the problems. Okay. So, with that being said, what does it look like to actually heal these repressed emotions that are in our body? What does it actually look like to heal what's trapped inside of our nervous system? How do we actually heal the emotional energy body? So, first thing that we have to do is we have to start opening up the doors to the feminine energy. Every single one of you listening to this now, man or woman, has feminine energy. The feminine energy is going to be the doorway into a couple different principles: receptivity, which means listening to understand, letting go, surrendering, letting go of attachment of identity, letting go of attachment of relationships, letting go of attachment of objects, all kinds of different attachments. Letting go is a feminine energy. Trusting the process, meaning when things are challenging, when things are uncomfortable, when you don't know how things are going to work out, you trust that you're existing in a divinely intelligent universe that is able to navigate you exactly where you're supposed to be, even when you don't see how it's doing it. And then ultimately feeling your emotions. That's the last feminine principle. This is one of the most important ones, and we're going to be touching on this in this today's video. Feeling your emotions, feeling them, actually feeling them with an awareness, knowing what you're doing. Okay, not just random, knowing what you're doing with intentions. This is how you process these energies. This is how you integrate them. So, the doorway is the feminine energy. This is like really what I want you to understand. So, what that means is we have to get to a space where you feel safe enough to start embracing your feminine energy. Now, with the manipulation, the indoctrination, and the programming that is currently taking place in our today's society, it is giving us a unconscious, subconscious, and conscious feeling of not being safe while also promoting a masculine fragmented identification. So, as I've discussed before in another video on my YouTube channel called Fragmentation, if you search up Universal Mastery Fragmentation, I want you to really watch this video to understand what fragmentation is all about, because this plays a significant role. To sum it up in a nutshell, fragmentation is how we will fragment our psyche at a young age, and we will fragment it generally in two significant ways: a masculine fragment and a feminine fragment. And we will interpret these two fragments as being connected to the mother and the father. Okay. So all of us have these fragments in our psyche because we do have um, a masculine and a feminine energy. And there was something or someone that did play these roles for us. Even if you didn't even if you didn't have a mom and a dad in your life, someone or something played that role for you. It could even be a movie. You could have identified a mother figure in a movie that then fragments your psyche to identify your feminine energy with that figure from the movie. All right. So we're overly pushed to identify with our masculine fragment because the masculine fragment is the protector, which is a lot more closed off to feeling. And if we can get someone's awareness to identify with this masculine fragment in their psyche, and we can make them feel unsafe enough to embrace their feminine energy, where they can start emotionally processing their traumas, then we can get someone to be completely controlled because they're going to be ran by all of their different traumas and they're not going to know how to process them. So that's why there's so much indoctrination pushing this masculine energy to identify with the masculine fragment of the psyche, um, followed by pushing influences that make people not feel safe. So, for example, when you turn the news on, people are dying, people are dangerous, all this stuff, all this stuff. And look, there is stuff out there for sure. But to consistently have that being pushed into your consciousness, that's going to have a big influence on you. Okay. Whenever you're around someone that's watching the news too often, it will eventually have an effect on you through the unconscious, subconscious realm. Even if you think it's not, it will. It will seep through, and it will generate a deep fear that makes you not feel safe, further identifying with this masculine protector that you have as a fragment in your own psyche. So, in order to start setting the stage so you can start embracing your feminine energy, the first step we need to do is we need to create safety. We have to have safety. If there's not safety, then this process is not going to be able to work to its full extent. So, what are some ways to create safety? Well, the first thing we have to understand is what is making us not feel safe? You know, what are some great examples of things that make people not feel safe? Drug addictions, substance abuse, toxic relationships, living with your family when you have a toxic family dynamic. Okay. The job you might work a job where you don't feel safe, where everyone is just, you know, not trustworthy or doesn't really care about you whatsoever. You may hate the job, but you may hate the job at the same time. Um, Living environments. Some of you may live in cities, like really compressed, compacted cities where there's tons of traffic, there's car accidents, there's ambulances, there's, robberies going on. Uh, Maybe it's a tough neighborhood you live in. All of these little things are examples of not having safety. You may live with roommates, and your roommates are always um, smoking weed, always getting drunk, always inviting people over that you don't trust. That's not having safety. You may live with somebody that you feel like you can't be the true you around. You may be into spirituality, you may be into the occult, you may have certain beliefs about certain things, and that person doesn't accept you for who you truly are. That is enough to make you not feel safe on a deep level. So, identifying what some of these areas are and then starting to change them. So, if you live in an unsafe, let's say, environment, how can you start a process of changing your environmental living situation? Is there a way that you can save up money and do a little bit of research and put some time and energy into moving? If you're in a toxic relationship where you're with a partner who never trusts you or you don't trust them, and you're intimately related or you're intimately connected with them, how, can you have a conversation with them? Can you tell them how you feel? Can you tell them that you don't trust them or you don't feel like they trust you enough? Can you be open about that and have a deeper communication? And if things don't align, are you willing to cut off that relationship? Are you willing to let go of that relationship for your self love, for your safety? Okay. If you're living in a toxic home environment, Maybe you're living with your family, mom and dad, brother, sister. Maybe it's a bunch of roommates. Maybe it's a friend of yours. And you just feel like you don't get enough downtime. You feel like there's always something chaotic happening. You feel like certain people in those environments are bringing out parts of yourself that are not truly you. And you're feeling like you're overly identified with those parts around them. This is very common with family dynamics where the family sees you in a certain way and you become that image to fulfill the family role. So most people have roles within their families, and it's easy to fall or fit into your role. And most of the times, those roles are not aligned with who you truly are. So, being aware of that and then changing your environment, moving out, okay, saving up money and transitioning, that's going to be extremely important. So, these are all little things that need to come into play in order to create safety. Same thing with the substance abuse. You have to start titrating off of the substances. This is like the foundation, really, of creating safety. Okay. If you're doing all the other things and you're not looking at these things here, same thing with the job. If you're working at a job, you gotta look into shifting jobs. You got to find a job that feels better for you, feels right for you. It may not be your favorite job, but at least one that feels better, one that gives you an ability to feel safer. And there are options out there. But as I was saying, this is setting the foundation for you to actually start embracing your feminine energy, which is the doorway to you healing your emotional energy body. If you're not doing these things, you're not going to get that far with the emotional processing. Trust me. Take my word for it. Please. Okay. If not, that's on you. But it is that serious. Okay. These things on an unconscious, subconscious level can really hold us back from doing the deep level emotional processing that we truly need to be doing to make progress. So once you've addressed those things, now what will naturally start happening is you will actually start um, being able to express and integrate or feel more of your feminine energy. It's like literally something that will naturally happen. When you put yourself in an environment or a circumstance where you don't need to always protect yourself, you don't need to always be on alert, you don't need to always be fighting something, you naturally start becoming a lot more receptive. You start becoming a lot more intuitive. You start letting go more. You start trusting the process, and it leads to more emotional processing. Now, this is also uncomfortable to do because this is most likely a very foreign state of being from what you're usually used to. And not only is it uncomfortable for that reason, but because the majority of the human species is stuck in this state where they're identified with this masculine fragment of their psyche, that makes it uncomfortable as well. Because when you're starting to embrace your feminine energy, in many ways, you're not going to resonate with a lot of people that you once did. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not millions of people that won't resonate with you and that aren't going to be that don't have a potential for, becoming close friends or whatever. It just means that you're going to start being very different than what the average person is. You're going to start you're on a process, or you're embarking within a process that most people are actively avoiding. And that naturally sets you apart from a lot of people in many ways, where you may look at yourself and you may say, wow, like I feel lonely. I feel bored. I feel sad. I feel like maybe there's no one out there that really knows what I'm going through. I feel like this is something that I don't know if it's worth it. Part of me wants to just go back into this cycle. Part of me just wants to go back to my old self and at least have the friends that I had. And, even though it didn't feel right, even though it didn't feel good, at least we're all kind of in it together. We're all suffering together, right? There's that component to it. And sometimes this uncomfortable feeling is enough to get someone who is making this transition to go right back into their old life, to go right back into the rat race, right back into the cycle of the mass collective where they're just running away from their trauma. And you can only keep that up for so long, especially it's also dependent on how aware you are. The more aware you are, the less able you are to go back to old patterns, because every time you go back to old patterns, the consequences get much more intense every single time. This is something that I've noticed with myself and with every single person I work with. And it's a beautiful thing. It is. So, with that being said, though, there's that component to it. Once you're starting to embrace more of this feminine energy, now you're starting to have access to your emotions. This is the gold. This is how you process things. This is how you heal. This is how you integrate this stored energy that has been trapped and has been frozen inside of your body from your past. Okay. And once again, just to give some extra depth to this, trauma goes into the generational bloodline as well. So even if you don't think you went through significant trauma in this lifetime, guess what? You did. You probably just don't know about it, but it's also connected to past lives. It's connected to the genetic code that you're a part of. So in this lifetime, you're also responsible for integrating all of that energy or all of that trauma. Not saying that it's something you have to do all in one lifetime, but it's a part of being a human, and it's a part of the growth process. No one can escape this. So it's important to be aware of that too. And guess what? In one lifetime, you can process all your generational trauma. And that's what very skilled adepts do, or very skilled people do, or very intentional humans will do as they are working on themselves. And that's deep. But with that being said, it's the emotions, the feeling of the emotions that is actually doing the processing. So there's a lot of people that I work with that come to me having done a whole bunch of therapy. And that's a wonderful thing. Therapy can be very powerful. Or they've done a lot of self development in general, and they have a whole knowledge on their trauma. They have a whole knowledge of the things that they went through, the times that they happened, how it affected them, how it made them feel. But the thing that I see a lot of people lack in is the actual emotional processing of what it is that they went through. So, as I said, people will come to me with a whole knowledge and a whole background within self development. But the value that I offer them, and really the real reason why they were drawn to me, was because I actually know how to get them to enter into the repressed emotion. I know how to get them to feel the feeling that they were not allowing themselves to actually feel. And therefore, they're not able to integrate it. So, in other words, what I'm saying is you can know all of your traumas. You could have, if the awareness hit you right now and you were aware of every trauma you ever went through, that doesn't mean you're healed. It just means you're aware of the event or the circumstance. But it's the emotion that is frozen in the nervous system in your body that needs to be felt again. And then through the feeling, it's processed. As it's being processed by feeling it, that's how you integrate it. So literally feeling it is doing the processing and it's doing the integrating. And it's not going to happen overnight. But that is something that a lot of people do not know. And once again, when people work with me, that's one of the main things that I guide them on doing, is how to actually, first and foremost, become aware of the emotion that they're repressing, and then creating that safe space where they can actually start feeling it while we're working together, guiding them into it, bringing up memories that are connected to it, and just digging a little bit deeper into that emotion. All right. This is where the processing is happening. And I guarantee there's going to be a lot of you listening to this that are avoiding the feeling of these repressed emotions. The emotions have been repressed for a reason. Okay. It's not bad. It's not evil. It's not a wrong thing that you've repressed the emotion. You did it because that's what you had to do to survive. But if you're here now, you're obviously at a place where you have enough capacity to start this process of healing, to start this process of integrating this repressed energy. And what I'm telling you is exactly what we now need to do in order to integrate this. And um, it is important to be aware that this is probably what you're doing as you're here right now listening to this. There's probably a host of really dense negative emotions like fear, sadness, loneliness, anger, depression that you have buried inside of your body that you are pushing down, pretending like aren't actually there. And you have this identity of yourself that, oh, I'm fine, or things are good, or this is why I'm like this, or this is why this has happened to me. You have this identity that you've created as to why these things are there or why they're not there. Okay. And the only way we're going to integrate into our true self and be more authentic to who we are is by recognizing the only way into that state is through. And when I say through, I'm referring to through your own hell. And your own hell is going to be going into all of those different repressed emotions and refeeling them, giving yourself time to be with them, giving yourself that safety so that they can further come up and you can better allow yourself to really sink into them and be with them, not judging these emotions, not thinking them as being wrong or bad or not good things to have, letting them be there, acknowledging them, even in many ways, thanking them for teaching you the lessons that they're teaching you. And as you're aware of that, and as you're doing that processing, that is going through your hell. That is your hell because all those repressed emotions are going to be attached to those exact events and those exact circumstances that were your traumas. And there are a lot of things that we're actually unaware of in regards to our conscious awareness of the circumstances of the trauma, just because of the nature of how trauma functions. We will often freeze it out of our memory. So you may even think that you know all of your different traumas and whatnot, but until you're actually doing the real emotional processing, um, there's a highly likelihood that those memories are actually frozen in your psyche. And remember, these memories could be connected to past lives. So you may do all this recollection on this life and you're like, no, I've seen everything. I don't think I went through any trauma. I can't imagine what anything's connected to. But deep down, I really do feel sad. I'm not really sure. And then when you start feeling the sad, when you start embodying it, embracing it, letting it come through, giving it that space, not running from it, not being afraid of it, not pushing it away, letting it come through. When that comes through and you start expressing it, and you start embodying it and processing it and integrating it, you might have this random memory that resurfaces in your psyche from some life experience that is not this one. This could be from 2 lives ago. And you just have this vision that becomes very clear to you. And you like literally see yourself in a situation that left you very sad. That's how deep this stuff goes. That's why the emotional processing is the core of healing the emotional body. So far, what we covered is we literally covered the foundation for being able to heal the emotional body. It starts with safety. You have to create the safety. Second step, embracing the feminine energy, letting go more, listening more to understand. This initiates the process of ego death. It initiates the process of death from this identity that you've been overly attached to, connected to the masculine fragment of the psyche. The deeper you're going into the feminine energy, the more you're gaining access to the emotions. More emotions are coming through. You're feeling different. You're thinking differently by this point. Your life is changing pretty drastically. Certain friends you're not resonating with certain friends anymore. You may have a different job. You may be going through a breakup. You may be going through a different living situation. That's very common when you're going through this process. All these different things that are also taking place are setting the stage for these emotions to start really coming to the surface as well, even deeper. So sitting with the emotions, being with them now. This is the key. This is the core. So that leads into the next stage. What is a good tool to be able to emotionally process? Like, what does that actually look like? Well, one of the first things we want to understand is we want to know about the body's sensations. So you want to generally develop a sense of your body's sensations. So when you're feeling certain emotions, is there a certain location on your body that this emotion could be connected to? So when I feel sadness, where is this sadness located? So for me, sadness is kind of like in the center of my chest. Okay. When I tune into it, sadness, it's like right in the center of my chest, like the diaphragm, actually, like diaphragm area. And becoming aware of those sensations is important so that when the emotion is there, you can have a better awareness of it. You can have a better sense of it. So the more sensitive you are becoming to your emotions, the more able you're going to be to actually process them when they're coming through. So that's a big key right there for the emotional processing. Now, what is another tool that's going to really help this process unfold? Giving yourself a time and a space to actually intentionally process the emotion. So, in everyday life, we all have certain things we have to do, right? We have to live, we have to pay rent, we have kids, we have groceries, we have friends, we have all kinds of stuff going on. We have family members that we got to tend to, whatever. Um, so many of us don't have any time, any space, any love for ourselves to create time or space to actually just be with us. When was the last time you had a relationship with yourself? And I don't mean this in a very like cliche way. I like literally like when was the last time you actually just sat with yourself without your phone, without the TV, without music, without everything, just you and you? Some of you, even as I'm saying this, you're already getting uncomfortable. You're like, oh, I can't even, I don't like that. That's a sign you've got some deeply repressed things. Okay. Giving yourself a location and a time where you can actually be with you. So, what does this look like? For me, there's a couch that I have in my living room, and I have designated this couch to be my emotional processing couch. So, what does that mean? When I'm doing things, could be like while I'm making this video, if something happens and I sense an emotion in my body, like a deep emotion that wants to come through. So typically it's going to be like sadness or fear or anger, something along those lines. If I sense that in my body, because I am very sensitive. I've been working on being very sensitive to what I'm actually feeling, so I can really tune into it when it's there. If I sense that emotion and it's there, and I know I'm doing something like making this video, or let's say I'm washing dishes, or I'm putting stuff in the dishwasher. Um, I'm making food for my Instapot, and then that emotion's there, I'll be aware that it's there. And that gives me indication that something has been repressed and wants to come through. Now I have a choice. I can be aware of that and I can continue doing what I'm doing and just keep doing it. And then once I'm done, I can go on my phone, I can go do something else, I could call somebody, I could do things. But if I'm doing that, I know that I'm avoiding that repressed emotion. I know there's something that wants to be processed. So for me, it would be a conscious decision of avoidance. And that's not what I want to do because I want to be the most authentic version of myself. and the most powerful version of myself. And in order for me to be that, I have to face my repressed emotions and I have to integrate them. I have to be with them. So I have this couch that I will sit on when I notice there's something there. And when I'm on this couch, I will not have my phone. There will not be any music. There will not be any TV. There's not going to be anyone that can disturb me or bother me. It's just me and me. And as I'm on that couch, it's like something energetically shifts because I know that when I'm there, I'm going to be facing something uncomfortable. And this will take time to kind of build a momentum or get to, but I've done it so many times now that it's like there's almost like an archetypal pattern for every time I sit on this couch, it gives me even further access to my repressed emotions because I've processed so many emotions on this couch in this way. So it's like as soon as I sit down, it's like my body already knows what I'm basically doing. My body's like, "Oh, thank you. You're giving us time to feel this. You're not running away. You're not pushing it down farther." So I will sit there and I will let whatever emotions there, I will sense it and I will intensify it. As uncomfortable as the emotion is, like the darkest emotions, I will intensify it, increase it, and I will let it fully come through. You could even say I will let it completely possess my body and I will experience it on that level and it will oftentimes express itself and I let it come through. And sometimes as I'm doing it, oftentimes I will have visions popping in my mind of once again traumatic memories that I didn't even remember. And these visions will become very clear during that time as I'm doing the processing. And then it'll get to a phase where there's like a calm. It's like the calm after the storm. And I will feel lighter, I'll feel better, and I will feel like that emotion is not there anymore. Like it came through and it did what it needed to do. And when that calm happens, that's when I know I did what I needed to do. And it may take time for that, but I will sit there as best as I can. I'm not perfect, but I'll do it as best as I can and let it fully come through. And when it's done, when that calm comes, then I continue what I was doing and I continue to be receptive to what I'm sensing in my body. And then I will designate this couch and I will designate myself to this couch to do the processing of it. This can be an extremely powerful tool to go deeper into your emotions. Do not underestimate the things that I'm talking about right now. Do not. Now, to add to this, you can incorporate a picture of your younger self. So if you have any pictures of you as a baby or as a little kid, anywhere from like 3 to 5, or maybe a little bit older, or if you have any old items, you have a blanket that you used to have as a child, if you have a little toy you used to have as a child, if you had a little like artwork, maybe you have a piece of paper that you drew when you were a little kid, who knows? Whatever this thing is for you, if you have that present in this location when you're doing the emotional processing, you can use it as a tool. You can literally hold it. And what this will do is it will further connect you with your inner child. And the inner child is the version of you that was untainted. It was the version of you that didn't go through all the intense traumas and repress them. You were just freshly incarnated into this planet, ready to live your life, ready to go through this journey. And you had a very open and honest connection with yourself. You had an awareness of what you were, you had an awareness of what you were on a spiritual level, like a deep unconscious spiritual level. You didn't care about what other people thought of you. You weren't afraid to feel. You would cry if you were sad. You would yell if you were angry. You would laugh if you were happy. And this part of ourself is so powerful. And the goal is to reintegrate that inner child with our adult self so that we can be the parents for our own inner child. And having these tools will help you connect with that inner child, which will help give deeper access to that repressed emotion. Because even most of these traumas were in early childhood, by the way, too. And the inner child is also connected to the feminine energy. This is another reason why the feminine energy is so repressed in modern times. This is a reason why there's so much promotion of breaking up the family in modern times. Because breaking up the family, mom and dad splitting or being argumentative to each other, sets the stage for a child to have a very fragmented psyche and to over identify with one fragment over another. Because one parent, usually the child will identify with one parent over the other when the separation happens. Mom was the good guy, dad was bad. Dad's the good guy, mom was bad. And then one of the parents, I mean, both of the parents are traumatized for having to go through that separation. And they're both in a state of usually a masculine fragmented consciousness because they're both trying to protect each other. And the kid adopts that from mom or dad. So this is just me giving examples. Connecting to that inner child will connect you to that feminine energy where you are the child of this universe. This universe we truly live in is a feminine entity. It literally is. Like the whole universe is an actual primordial entity, intelligent entity, and it is feminine in nature. And we live inside of it. We are its child. So connecting to that inner child sets the stage for you to be completely nurtured by the universe at the same time. And what does that look like? Things happen for you all the time. The only thing that gets in the way of the universe giving you exactly what you need when you need it is your own resistance to that. And your resistance to that is a repressing of the feminine energy inside of yourself and an inability to access that inner child, that inner innocence of creativity or adventure. So there's so many benefits with the inner child, and having these tools can help you access that. This is all the keys to doing this emotional processing. I just laid it out directly in front of you. I'll give you a brief sum up of everything we talked about. Setting the foundation, creating safety for yourself, removing things that take away safety, entrance into your feminine energy because we're creating safety, which will naturally happen. You don't have to force any of this. It will naturally start to happen. I see it happen over and over again with my clients and myself. Entrance into the feminine energy, receptivity, listening to understand, feeling your emotions, letting go, trusting the process. All of these things start to enhance. Consciously becoming aware that feeling the emotions, specifically the repressed emotions, the ones that are most uncomfortable to feel, consciously knowing that as we feel the emotion, not try to make sense out of it, not try to control it, not try to demonize it, not trying to push it away, allowing it to be there with acceptance, knowing that it's always going to be there until you accept it, embody it, and feel it. And in that, you can find a lot of love for the emotion itself. Even though it's uncomfortable, you can find love for it because on that deeper level, you will realize had you not experienced that emotion, you won't be what you're going to be. You're not going to be the most authentic version of yourself. You had to experience that to know yourself. So consciously processing these emotions, adding in tools like paying more attention to your body's sensations. What are you actually feeling on a sensational body level connected to these emotions? Where are these emotions located? Is there any shapes to these emotions? Is there any colors to the emotions? How big is it? Is it small? Is it medium? Is it large? Where is it located on your body? Then designating an actual place where you can do the emotional processing, a safe space where no one's going to bother you. You're not going to have your phone. You're not going to have music. You're not going to have TV. It's just going to be you with you. And we can incorporate a tool from early childhood to help you further connect to this inner child part of yourself that has most likely been repressed and is screaming and crying to redevelop a relationship with you. And when you start doing this, you will start rebuilding this relationship with all your different parts, all these different aspects of your psyche, which are all a part of your soul. Your masculine fragment, your feminine fragment, your inner child self, your true self, your central being, your authentic self. All of these things, all of these different parts and all these different fragments can find harmony in your true self. But it all comes together with a simple process of everything I just talked about in this video with the emotional processing. Do not do not let this be overcomplicated. It's not. It literally is so simple. It's just that most people don't do it because it's just there's so much influence that keeps people away from doing it, so much lack of education to understand why it's important to do this stuff. But if you actually knew how important it was to do this stuff and why you want to do it to live a life that's worth living, like to experience real satisfaction, there's nothing more powerful and nothing more satisfying than being your authentic self. There are many reasons why you want to do this. And that's where I'm going to leave this video. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm not going to go into a huge explanation of the places where you can find me in regard to the services. I'm not going to do a huge breakdown just because I'm getting a little bit hungry and I'm going to wrap it up here quick. But generally, if you want to get access to exclusive content, you can check out my Patreon. That's the first link in the YouTube description. Lots of valuable content over there. And tier 3 and 4 gives you access to an actual vampire ritual that's performed on the 29th of every month, which is extremely powerful and really does support this process of deep emotional integration. Leave that there. Mentorships. If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, which is probably one of the most intimate things that you can do with me and one of the most transformative things that you can do for you, definitely check that out. Second link below is where you can book the mentorships. Okay. Now, also in the third link below, this is a course that has recently been released. This is called Lucifer's Foundation Course. Now, this course is in regards to certain types of occult self-development, deep spiritual self-development. And as you can see, it's called Lucifer's Foundation. So a lot of the things that I just discussed in this video are going to be rehashed and talked about in this Lucifer's Foundation course with all the different occult knowledge and occult study that corresponds with it. So that itself right there is a very powerful course. All kinds of wonderful things are on there, and it's a brand new course. So if you want to get access to that, you go to that third link below in this description, and you can create an account, and then you can purchase the course yourself. Okay? So with that being said, this is where I'm going to wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate all of you very, very, very much. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or night, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.